Are you listening?
Welcome to the Nerf Report. My name is Brian. Thank you again for joining us this week, and much like most weeks, we have a lot to talk about. Both PlayStation and Xbox launched their next-gen consoles this week. Google Stadia announced that YouTube Premium members can claim Stadia Premier Editions for free. All Elite Pro Wrestling announced 3 upcoming video games, and Obsidian announced a brand new update for Grounded, which includes a koi pond. And in channel news, the Nerf Report now has YouTube memberships. That's right. Below this video, there's a join button, which you can click on it and help the Nerf Report financially and become what we are calling the Nerf Report Best Friends. Which, quick little segue, I launched this last night at like midnight, and I was like, oh, I'll go to bed and I'll talk about it in the morning. And some of you joined overnight before I even talked about it. So that to me is crazy. So thank you to anyone who is thinking about helping us grow this channel. That literally means the world to me so much. And if you can't help us financially, don't worry. Just watch our videos, like, comment, and share it with your friends, and you will help us grow as well. But despite all of that, for this week's episode, I want to talk with you about Nintendo. And I hear you. PlayStation launched the PlayStation 5. Stadia offered free consoles, and Xbox fans invented the first ever video game console / vaping machine. And you want to talk about Nintendo? Yes, because the Nintendo Switch is nearly 4 years old. And Nintendo announced this week that the console has officially surpassed 62 million units sold, making the Nintendo Switch the second best-selling console in Nintendo history, falling behind the Nintendo Wii, which sold 101 million units. However, one of the things that makes the Nintendo Switch unique is that the console also qualifies as a handheld, which puts the Nintendo Switch in 4th place in Nintendo handheld history, where the DS family sold 154 million units, the Game Boy family sold 118 million units, and the Game Boy Advance sold 81 million units. Now, history aside, what this news about Nintendo shows us is that in a world of teraflops, ray tracing, and 4K resolution, there is still a massive market of gamers who just want a casual experience. In fact, if you were to look at the top games that Nintendo sold this year, Animal Crossing New Horizons sits extremely high on that list with over 22 million copies sold. Let that sink in. 22 million copies. To put that into perspective, over 21 million people currently reside in the state of Florida, making it the 3rd largest state in the United States of America. Those sales numbers mean that essentially every person in the state of Florida bought Animal Crossing New Horizon, which is insane to think about. And when you expand those numbers even further, you will begin to see that Nintendo has an extremely successful attach rate. For example, there have been 62 million Nintendo Switches sold since 2017. With Animal Crossing New Horizons selling 22 million copies, that means nearly 36% of Nintendo Switch owners bought that game. And when you compare that to the competition, that number becomes even more impressive. Currently, the PlayStation 4's best-selling first-party exclusive is Uncharted 4: A Thief's End, which sold roughly 16 million copies. Now, when you compare that to the 113 million PlayStation 4s that have been sold since 2013, that gives us an overall percentage of 15%. And granted, there are obviously some circumstances that made Animal Crossing extremely successful this year, but the argument remains the same nonetheless. The Nintendo Switch is something extremely special, and it should not be ignored. In fact, the MPD Group, an American market research company, revealed brand new data this week that showed in the month of October, Nintendo sold 735,000 units of both the Switch and the Switch Lite in the United States alone. That's an increase of 136% over 2019, which means it is only a matter of time before the Nintendo Switch finds itself surpassing the Nintendo Wii, the Nintendo DS, and the Game Boy, especially when you consider that Nintendo plans on launching a Switch Pro in 2021, which would include things like 4K video support, SSD storage, a new custom processor, and unlike the other two Switches, the Switch Pro is rumored to be a TV-only console. And in doing so, Nintendo is extending the life cycle of the Nintendo Switch by 5 to 6 more years, ensuring that the Switch will eventually become the best-selling Nintendo console of all time. And look, I say this as one of the biggest critics of Nintendo in the last few years, but even I can't argue with numbers. What Nintendo is doing is working. And unlike previous consoles, where Nintendo has abandoned supporting existing consoles for newer units, Nintendo is making moves that would mean that no matter which Switch you buy, the company has you covered. And what I mean by that is when Nintendo launches the Switch Pro, it's going to bring a ton of games to the platform that were simply impossible to run on the original Nintendo Switch or the Switch Lite. However, recently, through cloud gaming, Nintendo showcased that hardware-demanding games like Control can easily run on the Switch and the Switch Lite. And look, a couple years ago, Reggie Fils-Aimé stated that, "I want Red Dead 2 to run on the Switch," and I genuinely laughed at that. But through the power of cloud gaming, Red Dead Redemption 2 could easily come to the Nintendo Switch. And for me, this would solve one of the biggest complaints that I have had about Nintendo this generation. Their terribly optimized ports of games that launched on other consoles would be a thing of the past. Think about it. Games like Ark, Outer Worlds, The Witcher 3, or Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy that struggled to be ported to the Switch could actually be playable on the Switch at the same quality as they were on the PlayStation or Xbox. So with the original Switch, Switch Lite, the rumored Switch Pro, and cloud gaming, Nintendo is creating this powerful lineup of gaming devices to meet any need that the potential gamer might have. And who knows, we might even see Nintendo follow in the footsteps of Xbox, Stadia, and PlayStation and embrace cloud gaming even more to allow their player base to play their games on any device that they want. Like, I know a ton of people that if you told them they could open up an app on their phone and immediately check on their turnips in Animal Crossing, they would be all in. But I get it. This is a prediction. It's not stating facts or reporting on the news, but this is a very possible outcome for Nintendo. Their brand is extremely powerful, and their player base is extremely loyal. But that loyalty will be tested by emerging tech, new services, and new games. Mario and Nintendo as a brand are timeless, but Mario and Fortnite are all competing for the exact same thing: attention. If Nintendo embraces a true mobile environment on top of everything else that they are doing, they will ensure that the hearts and minds of their player base will remain theirs forever. But where do you all fall on the Nintendo Switch? Do you like the platform? Have you purchased a Nintendo Switch? Do you think the platform can eventually compete with the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X the way it is right now? Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Hey, thanks again for checking out our channel. If you like what you saw and you want to see more content just like it, which who wouldn't, hit the subscribe button right there. And while you're down there, hit the like button. Maybe even consider becoming a Nerf Report best friend, just like the people listed down below did. In fact, don't you want to see your name there? I know I do.